And yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
We're making someone who committed these murders already a victim by saying he's having a bad day.
It's still early, but he does claim that it was not racially motivated. He apparently has an issue, what he considers a sex addiction, and sees these locations as something that allows him to go to these places, and it's a temptation for him that he wanted to eliminate. And he was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope, and yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
This was not a random, indiscriminate crime. This man got in his car and he went to these locations to target Asian women. And I think it was irresponsible for law enforcement to kind of put into public consumption today the idea that this guy has a sex addiction and he had a bad day. I think that dehumanizes our victims, and it makes it problematic for a prosecution later on if a jury pool thinks, you know what, these were just sex workers. We haven't heard that either.
He claims that it was not racially motivated, that this was based on some sex addiction, but I'm taking that with a grain of salt. This is a man who murdered 8 people in cold blood, so it's very difficult to believe what he says.
I think this moment is about, the ongoing and history of hypersexualization and sexual violence against Asian women, right? In that, alongside the hypersexualization and sexual violence is the invisibilization of our stories and our lives. This dates all the way back from the racial and colonial wars that our communities have experienced in Vietnam, in the Philippines, in Cambodia, in Korea. The sexual violence we experienced overseas, abroad, is carried over here. And the way that that takes place, or that can actually happen, is if you don't see us as human, if you see us as only as objects for your sexual issues, I think that's what they called it, right? Or his sexual addiction, right? You can only get away with that if you see us as non-human.
Racially motivated violence must be called out for exactly what it is. And we must stop making excuses or rebranding it as economic anxiety or sexual addiction. As a woman who is Black and Korean, I'm acutely aware of how it feels to be erased or ignored, and how the default position when violence is committed against people of color or women is to defer from confronting the hate that is often the motivation. Words matter.
Why is temptation in the form of an Asian woman? Why then would you go to an Asian massage parlor, 3 of them, to target them? If this were a synagogue, say, or a Black church, would people have the same impression that clearly there's no connection to race? When 7 of the 8 people who are killed are Asian, and 6 of them are women.
There are plenty of places where you can go to get massages or strip clubs or whatever that don't involve Asian women. In the Atlanta area. Plenty of opportunities. So the fact that he picked those places says something about his psyche and what his motivations were, even if he's not saying it out loud to investigators.